Ladies and gentlemen, we made it. Week 1 of the fantasy football season. We're going to go through all 32 teams, 16 matchups, and tell you the running backs that you should start or sit. Now, heads up, I'm guaranteeing a reply to the first 3 comments on every video this year, so make sure you subscribed and you've turned your notifications on. Let's go to Thursday Night Football. Cowboys at Eagles. It's a 47.5 over under. The spread is 7.5 in the Eagles' favor. That is tied for the largest spread of the week, meaning the Eagles are one of the biggest favorites of the entire first week slate. So let's start with the Cowboys side of the ball. Yes, Javonte Williams is the starter in Dallas, but this is a terrible matchup, so he is just a spot start. In our opinion, that means you do not have to force him into your lineup. If you don't have a clear, better option, then Javonte is a playable name because he's a part of a good offense. He's a starter, and he should get plenty of opportunities. But again, this is one of the most difficult rush defenses over the second half of the year in 2024. They're a young defense. They're going to get better. Their secondary has improved. Just across the board, they're a difficult matchup. But Javonte is a clear number 1. Miles Sanders, there's little to no evidence that he'll be a pivotal part of the offense. Jaden Blue, unlikely to be involved this early on, even if he was healthy, but I do love him as a stash. Let's go to the Eagles side of things, because Saquon Barkley, this man could go nuclear in week 1. I mean, we could be looking at a 30 bomb for Saquon in week 1. The best running back in an elite offense behind the best offensive line in the NFL, facing a defense that was a great matchup in 2024. They were a top 10 matchup for running backs last year. I know not everything translates from one year to the next, but if anything, the Cowboys are an even better matchup because they lost their best defensive player, and that's going to make everybody's job more difficult. So I think Saquon, my RB2 in week 1. We'll talk about my RB1 later on in this video, but an absolute must start, and we're flying off the board here with Thursday Night Football. What a way to start in the NFC East. Okay. So we have a Friday night football game this week. Make sure you're setting your lineups early and you're ready to go because the Chiefs and the Chargers battle in Brazil this week. It's a 45.5 point over under. The Chiefs are favored by 3 points, so it's a very close matchup. Let's start with the Chiefs side of the ball. Isaiah Pacheco is a must start for me. It's incredibly clear in my mind that Pacheco is the guy in Kansas City. I mean, even if you're worried about Kareem Hunt last year for some reason, well, he's dealing with a quad injury. Very unlikely to play. You might know that by the time you're watching this video. And even if he did play, I wouldn't be that concerned about him. Brashard Smith is a good stash, not someone we're thinking about in week 1. Elijah Mitchell, maybe he'll get worked in there, but Pacheco in a good offense is going to be the guy. It's not a great matchup last year, but this is an divisional game. I'm excited to see Pacheco out there. And on the Chargers side of the ball, we are going to go ahead and tell you to start Amarion Hampton. It is not a good matchup, all right? The Chiefs last year were actually the worst matchup for running backs. However, here's a couple things we got to keep in mind. Number 1, you drafted this guy in the 2nd or 3rd, maybe 4th round if you weren't in a sharp league. And Najee Harris hasn't practiced this entire offseason with the eye injury. He's finally getting back on the active roster, kind of getting worked into things. But this is not a team that he has any rapport with. He should be able to go week 1, Najee Harris, but he's not going to have an important role in week 1, having no chemistry with this team so far. Amarion will be the guy, the clear-cut starter in week 1. It's a difficult matchup, but he's talented. You're going to put him out there and see what your rookie can do for you. All right, let's jump into the third matchup here. This is the start of the 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slate of games on Sunday. It's a 47.5 point over under. The Bucs at the Falcons, a nice divisional matchup. The Bucs are favored by 1.5 points, so Vegas is expecting a very tight affair. Let's start with the Bucs side of the ball. Bucky Batman Irving. Ladies and gentlemen, the Batman signal is officially on, and it's illuminating in the sky. Are you ready to start Bucky Irving with me? I'm ready to start Bucky Irving. I'm excited. Rachaad White, I put him as a risky start. A risky start means 95% of you have a better option out there. You're only starting this guy if you're in like a 16 team, start 11 league or something like that. Rachaad's been dealing with a groin injury in the last couple weeks. However, he is a desperation play in PPR leagues at best. Going to the Falcons side of the ball, Bijan Robinson. Of course, you're going to start him. Now, you drafted him either number 1, number 2, or number 3 overall in your leagues. So you're going to start the guy. It should be a great way to start the 1 p.m. slate of games. Tyler Algier, I know everyone has that guy in the friend group who's trying to hype up their friends. Like everybody wants that guy to hype them up. Like, oh yeah, that guy's he's got motion like I do. That's what Bijan's doing here when he says Tyler Algier is the 1B. All right, we all want to hype our friends up. All right, going to another divisional game, Bengals at Browns. 47.5 over under. So a very high over under. I think that's because Vegas recognizes that both of these defenses are not that good. The Bengals are favored by 5.5 points, so strong favorites. Starting with the Bengals, Chase Brown is an absolute must start. His offensive coordinator claimed that he was the next Austin Eckler. That era starts this week, ladies and gentlemen. Samaje Perine will have a role on third downs, but he's not sniffing your lineups. Now, for the Brown side of the ball, I don't have a clear-cut start for you this week. The Bengals are not a bad matchup. However, if you think about game script, what's the most likely outcome in this game? I know anything's possible, but the most likely outcome is that the Bengals are up early and often, and the Browns have no ability to establish the run on the ground. So you're going to have to hope for Jerome Ford or Dylan Sampson to get work through the air, and for that to be enough for them to be good starts. I'd say 95% of you have a better start for week one. Most likely outcome is that Ford and Sampson both have roles in this game. However, they're likely to be down, and I just don't see it being enough for them to really warrant a start. Quinshon Judkins, I don't care if he signs this deal before week one or not. By the time you're watching this, we're not starting any Browns running back. All right, jumping into the fifth matchup here, Dolphins at Colts, 46.5 point over under. It's a close spread here, so this could go either way. For the Dolphins, Devon Achane should be good to go. For anyone out there who is a little bit worried about the injury, all reports so far, things could change through the week, and we'll keep you updated, but all reports so far is that he should be good to go for this game. You're going to be putting him out there. PPR monster against the Colts. It's a great matchup as well. It will be fun to see what Ollie Gordon's role is, but you're not thinking about him as a realistic option. Now, on the Colts side of the ball, of course, you're going to start Jonathan Taylor. This is a must start. We're also using him in a DFS lineup, which we'll show you guys here later on. But can he stay hot from last year? In his last 3 games that he's played in the NFL, he's averaged 30.8 points per game, 173 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns per game. Can he stay hot heading into week one from what he did last year? I don't know, but it will be fun to watch. All right, sixth matchup we're going to look at here is the Raiders at the Patriots. So it's a 42.5 point over under. It's a close spread, but the Patriots are favored. 2 teams that don't have very high Super Bowl odds. So we'll see how this one pans out. But Ashton Jeanty, again, if you drafted this guy, you drafted him either the first or the early second round. You're putting him straight into your lineups. Last year, the Patriots were a top 10 matchup, like a very good matchup for your running backs. Things change from one year to the next, so we'll monitor what their team looks like here from one year to the next. But you're going to put Ashton Jeanty in there. He should drown in volumes. I would be shocked if he doesn't have 17 plus touches in week number one. And this offense should be improved with the additions of Geno and everything they've done there. Now, on the Patriots side of the ball, I don't have a must start. I have 2 spot starts. Now, Trayvon Henderson, let's be real. If you drafted him, I struggle to see you having a better option here in week number one, because if you drafted him in my leagues, he was either a 3rd or a 4th round pick. So if that's the scenario you're in, of course you're going to go ahead and put him out there into your starting lineups. However, I do think Ramondre Stevenson is going to have a larger role than Henderson owners really want to admit. So I do think Stevenson's going to be involved. By the end of the season, I don't think we're even going to be talking about Ramondre Stevenson. That's my personal opinion. But in week one, I think we'll have, a slow get out of the gate things. But Trayvon Henderson is so explosive on a per touch basis. He could have, 10 to 12 touches and still be a great start in fantasy football. So I prefer to start Henderson, PPR monster, and we'll see what this backfield looks like here in 2025. But what I will say is Stevenson, if you're out there and you need a desperation play, there are worse plays than Stevenson this week. All right, jumping into the 7th matchup here, we've got the Cardinals at the Saints. 42.5 point over under. The Cardinals are heavy favorites in this game. Let's talk about those Cardinals. I do anticipate the Cardinals winning this game. I do anticipate them controlling this game. And James Conner is one of my favorite starts of the week. He should be the unquestioned guy to start the year. It's a great matchup. The Saints last year, their rush defense was terrible. And then in the second round, was one of the first picks last year in the draft. They went out and took a quarterback. I don't think their defense is going to be that much better this year. They were the 5th best matchup last year. Connor should be the guy. He should crush in a great matchup. But it will be interesting to see Benson because they've talked all offseason about how it's a 1A, 1B. It will be fun to see if, those words have any action. But we're confidently starting Connor. We're watching Benson. It's a wait and see scenario with him. And then on the same side of the ball, the only player in this entire matchup that I'm excited about at any position is Alvin Kamara, because he's the only offensive weapon that they're going to funnel their entire offense through no matter the game script, okay? If they're up, he'll get plenty of rushing attempts. If they're down, they're going to target him as much as their wide receivers. So in half PPR and full PPR, he is bust-proof in my opinion, but it will be fun to see what Kendre Miller's role is with these New Orleans Saints. Now, with news rapidly changing, the 2025 season pass is a must-have for your fantasy football season. It's a $34 one-time purchase when you use the promo code LAND. You can check out the pinned comment. About $2 per week for the entire season, and you get season-long access to my rankings, in-season, weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, updated every single day so you know exactly what my thoughts are. You get access to the entire site, premium tools, and some vouchers to come on the stream and ask me questions. You can create a free account and use the League Analyzer tool, the My Teams feature, for free. And if you see any value in the site, then you can sign up. So check out the link in the pinned comment. And you'll also notice with that link that you can ask us a start-sit question on the Flock site and get an answer pretty much at any time. Okay, Steelers at Jets. Now, this is the lowest over-under of the week. So we are not expecting a lot of points according to Vegas. The Steelers are favored even though it's in New York. I am not excited to start any Steelers in this matchup, if I'm honest with you guys. The Jets were not a bad defense last year. Okay, they were not a bad defense. Jaylen Warren is a spot start, meaning if you have no clear better option, you can put him in there. Maybe you went 0 RB strategy. He's maybe one of those guys that you drafted late. He's going to lead the backfield to start the year, but it will be a rotation. It's not a great matchup. Caleb Johnson, we labeled a risky start. Caleb Johnson is a long-term play if you drafted him, not someone that you should be thrilled about in week 1. He's going to need time. You need to deploy patience. It's a wait-and-see approach for me if you can afford it. And then as far as the Jets side of the ball, we will have Breece Hall as the only must-start in this matchup, but we're going to find out a lot about this backfield in week 1. For a long time this offseason, the Jets have said, we're going to use 3 running backs. They did that in preseason. They've talked about how Braylon Allen's role is going to be significant. We'll have to wait and see if all that is talk or if it actually turns into action this year. But Braylon Allen, we listed as a risky start, meaning 95% of you guys have a better option. The bad news is this isn't a great matchup. So, tough defense. If the Jets are behind, Allen might not get many opportunities. I would strongly encourage you guys to look another way if you have a better option. All right, let's go to the 9th matchup here. Giants at Commanders, 45.5 point over under. The Commanders are favored by 6.5 points. That's the 3rd largest spread of the week. So in theory, there should be a lot of value in this Commanders running back room, but it is a difficult running back room to completely digest. Now, I know we're all fans of Bill, okay? But I do think to start the year, we are going to see Austin Eckler as the safest play in this Commanders backfield. In any half or full PPR type of format, he is safe. He's my RB 28 on the week, so right outside of that must-start range, which is my top 24. So he's a spot start. You can flex him. He can be your RB2 if you don't have a solid RB2. The matchup should be great. The Giants were a top 5 matchup for running backs last year, but things change from one year to the next, so we can't hold on to that. That's not a sticky stat at this point of the year, but the Commanders are heavily favored. It's an elite offense. It's a good matchup. We should see some value in this backfield, and I believe it comes from Austin Eckler. Now, Bill Krosky-Merritt, I put as a risky start. I would highly encourage you that if you drafted him, wait and see what the backfield looks like, because this team has said that they're going to use Chris Rodriguez. I mean, Dan Quinn has actually talked about Brian Robinson's replacement on the goal line being Chris Rodriguez. So I would slow play the Bill Crosby hype. I would not be relying on him in my matchups in week 1, but of course you got to go with your gut on that one. Now, as far as the Giants go, the only player that you can start on this team would be Tyrone Tracy. He should be the guy in week 1. I don't know exactly what ceiling he has in this offense. I think Cam will get some work. Devin Singletary will get some work, but Tyrone should be the clear-cut guy in week 1, so it's a volume play. All right, the 10th matchup we're going to look at here is the Panthers at the Jaguars. It's a 46.5 point over under. The Jags are favored by 3. And last year, these two defenses were the best matchups for your running backs the entire season. The Panthers gave up the most points to running backs. The Jags gave up the 2nd most points to running backs. They were in a battle all year long, for who can be the worst rush defense in the NFL. And they were both winning. Chuba Hubbard, that's why he is one of my favorite starts of the week this year. I am going to use him in a DFS lineup. I'll show you guys here later on. A great matchup for him. one of the most underrated running backs in fantasy this entire year, in my opinion. Should have a very strong start. My RB12 on the week. I have the ultimate confidence in Chuba Hubbard. He's a safe floor and a high ceiling. Now, on the opposite side of the ball, it's a great matchup, but I think we all just don't have enough information to really trust one of these guys. If I had to start one of these guys, it would be Etienne in half or full PPR, because I think he'll get the first go. If you're playing in a standard league, meaning no PPR, I would say Bigsby's probably the one that I would trust. It's a great matchup. It's a confusing backfield, maybe the second most confusing backfield in the NFL behind Cleveland. It's one of those two backfields that are the most confusing, but we do have Etienne as a spot start. You can put him in there if you don't have a better option. I would much rather wait on this entire offense and just kind of see where the cookie crumbles. But Tank you can throw in there. If you're desperate, these are the names that you can put into your lineup, but don't have high expectations because none of us know how this is really going to play out. All right, the 11th matchup we're going to look at. Now, this is the start of the afternoon slate of games. We've got the Titans at the Broncos. It's a 41.5 point over-under. That is the second lowest over-under of the week. So Vegas does not anticipate a lot of points, but I think that's because they don't anticipate a lot of points from the Tennessee Titans, because this is tied for the largest spread of the week. The Broncos are favored by 7.5 points, by more than a single touchdown. So let's start with those Broncos. All right, J.K. Dobbins, I think will be, the quote-unquote starter in week one, but I do think that Harvey is going to get a strong rotation in this game. I have both of them listed as spot starts, meaning they're not inside my top 24. They are flexible names, but they're not guys that are probably going to win you the week this week. Dobbins is the one that I would trust if I had to choose between those two names. But RJ Harvey, I wouldn't be shocked if he's more valuable for fantasy football. The Dobbins, he could start. It could be a formality, but we need to see it before we rank Harvey over Dobbins. So right now, we'll go Dobbins over Harvey, but long-term play, we all very clearly want RJ Harvey. And if Dobbins has a big role in week one, I would be actively looking to trade for Harvey after this week. But again, it's an interesting matchup here. The Titans were a top 10 play in last year's rushing defense. Now, for the Titans, Tony Pollard is a must start. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because they're not, predicted to have a lot of points. It's a low over under, but this is a volume play, okay? Tony Pollard is going to drown in opportunities. He is game script proof. If they're up, then he's going to get rushing opportunities. If they're down, he's going to be targeted out of the backfield. No Tajay Spears for the first 4 weeks. He should get so much work that, it should be at least a 11-point PPR floor in fantasy football. All right, let's jump to a great matchup in this afternoon slate. The 49ers at the Seahawks. 44.5 point over under. The Niners are favored in Seattle. How do Seattle fans feel about that? By 2.5 points. Christian McCaffrey. I told you we would talk about my RB1. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my RB1 for week one. This is where the CMC drafters get to have fun. He's healthy. All reports are that he looks like himself. He's the premier weapon and what should be a great offense, projected to score top 6 points per game this year. Yes, Brian Robinson is there. That does not concern me. He should get some opportunities, but even if he's going to be a part of the rotation, they're going to have to work him in slowly. Isaac Orendo, dealing with that shoulder injury, I think CMC is going to get as much opportunities as he can possibly handle. And on the opposite side of the ball, Ken Walker is another must start for me. He seems primed to be the guy in week one, practicing all week. And Zach Charbonnet, unfortunately, is just not a startable name if Walker is healthy. We put him as a spot start, but in his entire career, you'll see in splits with Ken Walker, that's on the left side of your screen, he's only averaging 6 points per game in PPR. Without Ken Walker, he's one of the best fantasy running backs in the NFL. This coaching staff and this organization has talked about using Charbonnet more, but every time they've done that, the words haven't followed into action. So I do think Ken Walker is still the guy to own in this backfield. Technically, this was a good matchup last year for the 49ers. Against the 49ers, they were a top 6 play for your running back. But I think that's one of those things that could course correct in 2025. All right, jumping into my favorite game to watch this week, okay? I'm not even a fan of either of these two teams, but Lions at Packers should be an absolute doozy, ladies and gentlemen. Two teams that are very much in contention to win the division. It's a 48.5 point over under, the second highest over under of the week, and it's a very close spread in favor of the Packers. So Vegas says We should see a lot of points. It should be very close. I love that for fantasy football. The Lions, you're going to start Jahmyr Gibbs. You're going to start David Montgomery. Now, personally, both names, have been startable since they joined the team, Gibbs and Montgomery, but I believe we could see Jahmyr Gibbs' role grow in year 3. That only makes sense as he enters his prime, as Montgomery gets a little bit older. I'm not saying he's old, okay, but I do think the Montgomery owners could be disappointed by David Montgomery in week 1 because there's a chance we see this offense, as it has a new coordinator, go ahead and say, you know what, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best weapon in the NFL. Let's give him more and more work. Now, I do still think Montgomery is a must start because we need to see that action before we change our rankings. So he is still a must start. He's been great against the Packers in his career, both with the Bears and with the Lions. On the opposite side of the ball, Josh Jacobs, there's no, Marshawn Lloyd, Emmanuel Wilson is your backup. He should be in a very, very good spot. This is a tough rushing defense. They were actually a top 5 worst matchup last year for your running backs. They did get Aiden Hutchinson back, but Jacobs will be the focal point of this offense, so you can trust him in your lineups. All right, jumping to the 14th matchup of the week, we've got Texans at Rams, a 44.5 point over-under. The Rams are favored. Now, the Texans, as you know, Joe Mixon is out the first 4 weeks minimum. Nick Chubb is going to be their starter in week 1. All reports indicate that, at least at the time of recording this. However, I would not be trusting him in my lineups. I've labeled him a risky start, meaning 95% of you have a better start out there. Unfortunately, I just don't see much value from any running back for this team in week 1. They face the Rams. I don't think they're going to be up in this game. It's the worst offensive line in the NFL. I just struggle to see really any value. You have to hope that Nick Chubb falls into a touchdown for it to pay off, because the way that he's looked in the preseason, he looks completely washed. The way this offensive line has looked in the preseason, it looks rough for the run game. And I think they might have to emulate the run game through the air out of the backfield, specifically to their satellite back, Woody Marks or Dare Ogunbowale. So I'm not very excited about this one, and I would steer clear of that backfield. For the Rams, Kyren Williams, of course, a must start. We've heard about how they want to start to integrate more of their running backs into the rotation, like Blake Corum. How will that actually look? Like, will we actually see any decrease in volume, or is it just words? We'll have to wait and see. But right now, we are only trusting Kyren Williams in this matchup. We're not starting anybody else. All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. The Ravens at the Bills. This is the highest over-under of the week, 52.5 points. It's a close spread. So Vegas is saying the most fantasy points this week are going to come from this matchup. And I love Derrick Henry this week. Just love him. He's a must start. He's going to be in my DFS lineup. The Bills last year were a top 3 matchup for your fantasy running backs. Things change from one year to the next. But if the Ravens are up, Derrick Henry is going to smash 2 elite offenses facing off against each other. I can't wait to see this one unfold. And then as far as James Cook goes, of course you're going to start him. The man just got a bag. They're going to use him. All right, you're going to put him into your starting lineup. I can't wait to watch that particular matchup. In fact, here is my DFS lineup for week 1. Henry is in there like swimwear. This is my lineup for FastDraft's Quick 6 Super Slam. The contest just launched. All you have to do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks to fill your lineup and then adjust your boosters accordingly. So you can see I have Derrick Henry at a 1.5 booster. That means he will get 1.5x his normal amount of points. Whichever lineup scores the most points that week wins the contest. You can download the FastDraft app. Use my promo code LAND. I'll match your deposit up to $50. That's 5 free Quick 6 Super Slams on me. And then when you finish your first contest, I'm going to send you my week 1 rankings completely free. So you can check out our link tree that has that link there. All right, last matchup we're going to look at here is Vikings at Bears. We end week 1 with a banger on Monday Night Football, 43.5 point over under. We are going to go ahead and tell you to start Aaron Jones in this matchup. I have been a big Jordan Mason guy. He is a spot start for us. You know, we've been told all year that Mason is the RB1B to the 1A in a split backfield with Aaron Jones. I can't wait to see that in action. I do believe that will be true, but we need to see it in action before we aggressively rank Jordan Mason. But it is a very good matchup for the Minnesota Vikings, an elite offense, a team that struggled to stop the run last year. Both of these guys are startable. I would trust Aaron Jones a little bit more in any PPR type of format. Now, on the Bears side of the ball, we are going to go ahead and tell you to start DeAndre Swift. That is the only name that we trust. We're not going to start Rashawn Johnson. We're not going to start Kyle Monangai. We'll see what that rotation looks like in Chicago. But in the preseason, Swift was heavily involved. He was the clear-cut guy. It should be an improved offense, and it should be a high-scoring affair, so you can start DeAndre Swift. Guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Do me a favor. Hit that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content. Remember, each and every start-sit video, we're answering the first 3 questions guaranteed. So make sure you turn on your notifications and you're subscribed. And we are doing the start-sit wide receivers tomorrow. So I will see you on the video tomorrow. Do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you then. Good luck in week 1. And check out the pinned comment. If you have any start-sit questions, you can ask us on our website. We'll get you a guaranteed reply. And that's it for today. Go dominate. Draft with me every night this offseason on the FastDraft app, where there are over $250,000 in prizes waiting to be won. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. And when you finish your first real money contest, I'll send you my 2025 rookie report and season rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.